There's a city, beautiful, gleaming, full of light, that once had a name. But no one remembers it anymore. Not the people who live there. Not the children who run through its polished streets. Not even the city itself. If you ask them what the city was called, they'd smile politely, like someone trying to remember a dream they just woke up from. It doesn't matter, they'd say. What matters is what we are becoming. And that was their first mistake. The city used to be ordinary. Streets had names, after poets, heroes, trees. There were old parks where grandfathers told stories of wars, of victories, of heartbreak. There were monuments covered in dust, and mothers who told bedtime tales of the people who came before them. But over time, success became their new religion. They wanted to be perfect, sleek, clean, forward-looking. So they started erasing. It began with the little things. An old statue replaced by a fountain. A museum closed to make space for innovation. Then, they changed the street names to numbers. And the festivals. Gone. The songs. Forgotten. They told themselves, history is a weight. We are cutting the rope so we can fly. But you can't fly when you've forgotten where the ground is. At first, everything seemed fine. The city grew richer. Faster. Shinier. They built towers of glass that touched the clouds. They stopped teaching history in schools, because they said the future was all that mattered. They didn't realize it yet, but the forgetting had already begun. An old man one morning couldn't remember where his grandfather was buried. A woman forgot her mother's lullaby. Even the digital records, files, photos, maps, began to vanish. It wasn't vandalism. It wasn't a glitch. It was something else. Something like memory dying. And then came the whispers. People swore they heard voices in the night, soft, distant murmurs in a language no one spoke anymore. Sometimes the streetlights flickered in rhythm with those whispers, like the city itself was breathing. A few historians, what little were left, dug through whatever scraps they could find. They uncovered an old inscription carved deep beneath the foundation of City Hall. It said, "Those who bury their roots will be buried by them." They laughed it off, of course. Superstition. Folklore. But the laughter didn't last long. One by one, families disappeared. Not died, disappeared. Their apartments still had furniture, but no trace of who'd lived there. No neighbors remembered their names. It was as if they had never existed. Among the few who noticed was a young archivist named Lira. She worked in the records department, a small grey building that no one ever visited anymore. But Lira had a secret. Every night, after work, she sneaked into the abandoned basement and copied the city's old stories by hand. Tales of the founders, the poets, the first name of the city, though it was always blurred, faded, or crossed out. She didn't know why she cared so much. Maybe it was fear. Maybe curiosity. Or maybe it was because she felt something strange. Every time she looked in the mirror, her reflection seemed a little less clear. One night, she found something, a brittle, half-burned document, written in flowing ink. At the top, barely legible, was a single word. The city's true name. She didn't know what would happen if she read it aloud. But she couldn't bear not to. The moment the name passed her lips, the world seemed to stop breathing. The air thickened. The ground trembled. And somewhere, deep beneath the skyscrapers, something ancient stirred. Lights went out across the city, one by one, until only the moon remained. Then, the whispers grew into a roar, 1,000 forgotten voices rising at once, like the ancestors had finally woken up. Glass cracked. Towers bent. Streets split open as roots burst through concrete, dragging steel back into the soil. And in the center of it all stood Lira, clutching the paper, crying as she whispered again and again. I remember. I remember. By dawn, the city was gone. Where it once stood was only a forest, thick, green, silent. And among the trees wandered a handful of survivors, dazed and weeping, with only fragments of memory left. They remembered their faces. They remembered each other. But not the city's name. They tried to speak it, but the sound caught in their throats like smoke. Lira left behind a small journal, found years later beneath the roots of a massive oak. Inside, she had written, "We thought we were erasing the past to build the future. But the past was the only thing keeping us real. Forgetting is a kind of death. Remember, even when it hurts." The city that forgot its own name didn't vanish in a blaze. It faded, piece by piece, until nothing was left to remember it by, except stories like this one. And maybe that's the strangest part. Maybe the story found you for a reason. Because when you think about it, how much of our own history have we already erased in the name of progress? And if one day we forget who we were, who will remember us?